Okay, hello everybody. This is Dr. Kevin Connors. It is May 15th, 2018. We are doing a Zoom call and this is recorded. So we're going to talk about a heady subject that I'm going to try to break down and simplify as much as possible. I apologize for times I don't do that quite so well. I was told that a video that I made a few weeks ago could have been simplified a little bit more, so I think I'll actually remake that. To make it a little bit easier to understand. Glycation and cancer is our topic today. Glycation is something I'll explain just a second. And the subtitle is The Role of Ages. AGE does not stand for your chronological age from birth, but it stands for what this talk is all about, and how it relates to cancer progression as some new research is coming out. It's quite interesting. So what are ages? So modern diets are largely heat processed. So we receive ages, or advanced glycation end products. That's what ages stands for, an advanced glycation end product. I'll explain what it is in just a minute. But we receive those exogenously from foods, so like grilled foods and fried foods and things like that, because they're heated, and it's a carbohydrate that's heated with a protein. That sugar or carbohydrate that's heated with a protein causes these glycated proteins. And these glycated proteins become these advanced glycated end products that are very damaging to our cells. Now, you might have read about ages with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's and diabetes and cardiovascular disorders, and that is really a major cause of those things. It causes a lot of cellular disruption, cell signaling issues, meaning that cells don't talk to each other very well, and it affects these receptor sites on cells. Remember, receptor sites on cell membranes are how cells communicate with one another and how nutrients get into cells and how hormones and different things attach to those receptor sites and turn things on and off of the cell. One might say that the cell membrane, because it has thousands and thousands of receptor sites for different things, the cell membrane is really the brain of the cell. If you equate an individual cell with a human body, one would have to say, because of all the information that's taking place at the cell membrane, that the cell membrane really is the brain of the cell, not the nucleus of the cell. The nucleus is simply responsible for replication. So when we talk about a cancer that is taking place, that cell is in rapid replication. That's what a cancer is. It is really something that's affected the cell membrane, or that process that the cell membrane receptors turn on and off, or don't turn on and off in the case of apoptosis, that causes this replication. So I've said it hundreds of times that anything that can get inside of a cell that shouldn't, like a pesticide or a chemical, could disrupt that replication cycle of a cell, and that can cause problems. Well, when we talk about ages or advanced glycation end products, we've always spoken about them in cardiovascular disease, in Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's, and degenerative disorders like that. It's been rarely spoken about with cancers until just recently. And that's what we want to discuss a little bit. So when we have a glucose, so this is a sugar molecule that attaches to actually an end product of a protein, you get this glyconated. That's where the glycation comes from, is from glucose attaching to a protein, and that's where you get these ages. This is the process that takes place. Now, this could take place exogenously in something that we eat. So we fry an egg, and the sugar in the egg, the carbohydrate, attaches to the protein and becomes glycated, typically at a high temperature. This is the bad thing about fried foods and about grilled foods. So you grill meat and the carbohydrates that are in the meat attached to the proteins in the meat in a glycated way. It doesn't work as a protein anymore as you eat it, and these things absorb in this glycated form and could cause damage to our cells because they attach to these age receptors, these receptors on the cell membrane that then cause damage to the cell. So that's the process that takes place, and usually it takes time. So though this can actually take place when you grill a product, it takes time for these to build up and become toxic in our body. So I said this happens with grilled food and fried food, but this also happens in our body, not just with the foods that we eat, but this happens in our body, not due to heat in our body, but due to other factors in our body and just a poor diet. So there's other things that can cause these ages in our body. Now, it's been attributed, these ages, these advanced glycinated end products have attributed to age spots and liver dysfunction and all these different things. And some people say, oh, you have a lot of age spots, so you probably have a lot of advanced glycinated end products. Well, that may or may not be true. There could be other causes to that too, but it definitely does increase with chronological age, and it does increase with any degenerative disorder. Matter of fact, it's been attributed to all these different diseases. And you don't see cancer on here at all, do you? I didn't really look at this too close, but cancer isn't on there. This is what it's been related to over the years. But just recently, these have been related more and more to cancer. What's taking place is that they found this receptor. So here's an advanced glycinated end product here. This is actually a blood vessel here, and this is beneath the lumen. This is the lumen up here of the blood vessel. This is the muscular layer down here. This advanced glycinated end product can attach to this receptor for an advanced glycinated end product. That's where the RAGE comes in, and multiple cascade of events can take place. It could cause vascular smooth muscle proliferation and contraction. So what would that do to a blood vessel? That would increase blood pressure because you have a smooth muscle proliferation. So you got a stronger muscle around a blood vessel, and contraction of that blood vessel will decrease the lumen and will cause a lesser flexibility of the blood vessel. So it'll increase blood pressure. It changes the calcium channels, therefore causing contraction, and you have increased blood pressure. Also, it causes platelet aggregation. Not to get too techy here, but this is what causes plaquing. And it even gets worse because these ages attach to low-density lipoproteins, which there's all sorts of different types of low-density lipoproteins. If you've ever had your blood tested in a liver panel and you're getting your cholesterol checked and your high-density lipoproteins, oh, those are the good guys. The low-density lipoproteins, those are the bad guys. But really, the really bad guys are the low-density lipoproteins that have ages attached to them. They're oxidized. So you got oxidized low-density lipoproteins that are attaching to the epithelial wall and getting under the epithelial wall and causing foam cells and plaque formation. This is where a bunch of cytokines are given off and inflammatory markers are given off. Maybe this is getting a little bit too deep and too heady, but for any doctors that may be listening to this, this is really how plaques form. This is how blood vessels are damaged. This is how people have heart attacks right here. So how does this relate to cancer? We're talking about endothelial cells. By the way, endothelial cells are the cells that line your blood vessels. So how does this relate to cancer? Well, it does relate to cancer in certain ways. These age molecules bind to their respective receptors, so the receptors on the cell membranes. So these are called receptors for advanced glycation end products, or RAGE. Very appropriate name there because it causes a lot of problems. And they initiate several aberrant signaling pathways. That means they initiate some signaling pathways in the cell that we don't want to have. It could lead to Alzheimer's, atherosclerosis that we just spoke about, heart failure, and it could lead to cancer and the proliferation of cancer, known as metastasis. So that's what we don't want to have, and that's what we're talking about. Because the binding of these RAGEs, those receptors for advanced glycinated end products, to a gene called the KRAS genes, it upregulates or facilitates this HIF-1A activation. Oh my gosh, you lost me, Dr. Connors. Well, hold on, we're going to talk about it in just a second. This HIF-1A reaction you've heard me talk about before, and you've heard me talk about KRAS before, because these are very, very important gene pathways that tell us what your cancer's feeding off of. So if you have a lot of defects on your KRAS pathway, if you have a lot of defects on your HIF pathway, and you have advanced glycinated end products, meaning your diet has been poor, you're eating a lot of sugar, you're eating a lot of fried foods, and your diet's just been a typical American diet, you add those together and you set yourself up for cancer. If you already have cancer and we have defects on KRAS, HIF, and you're eating a crappy diet, you're setting yourself up for metastasis. So these age molecules bind to their respective receptors and initiate problems inside the cell. Let's talk about that. Let's unpack that a little bit. I know it's a lot of information. I'm supposed to simplify this, right? So if we have not done your genetic review yet, this will look a little odd to you. If we've done your genetic review, you'll go, oh, I've seen that before. I can't remember where I saw that. Maybe it was on a Channel 2 show. No, this is from your genetic review. So your KRAS genes, there's actually more, but this is all I could get in the screenshot. Your KRAS genes are very important in how cancer can be initiated and proliferated. So your KRAS genes have to do with how you handle glucose and how glucose is processed through your body. So it's important whether glucose and glycolysis is an initial pathway of cancer progression. That's why we look at the KRAS pathway. Well, you add advanced glycinated end products to a person that has a bunch of, this person I would say doesn't, but if this person had twos and more ones in filling this pathway, which a number of our cancer patients do, then they have to be even more specific to a more keto-like diet, less fried foods. So, but these aren't variants, or these are defects. So this person has one, we're only showing a handful of KRAS genes here, but they only have, of all their KRAS genes, they only have 3 of them that have defects. So these top 3 have a double allele, and a single allele defect. So I would say this person is not going to be a candidate for really bad problems with everything we're talking about right now. But if I grabbed, this is my sample patient, so if I would have grabbed somebody else's KRAS genes for this slide, and they would have had 2s and 1s all the way down, this would be a very appropriate slide presentation to watch a couple of times, because they're going to have to follow what we're going to talk about at the end here. The other gene that we mentioned is the HIF-1A gene. Now this person has a number of variants or defects. See all the 1s. Now they're not 2s, but they're still 1s all the way down, multiple HIF genes. Now that means that glucose is going to be a major feeder for that person's cancer. And let's look at that pathway again. So we've gone over this pathway multiple times in previous slide presentations, that food, carbohydrates, are going to break down into glucose. Glucose breaks down into this pathway that is skipped here through the arrow called glycolysis. Glycolysis gives off a couple ATPs, that's energy. Your body's whole purpose, one of your main purposes in life, remember, is to make energy. And you do so through glycolysis and through the Krebs cycle and the fatty acid cycle, where you're making ATPs. So you're typically making energy through glucose, and you're making energies through fatty acids. That's your typical sources of energy. Now, some people's cancer, so cancer needs energy in order to grow. It's rapidly replicating cells. Oh my gosh, it's just sucking ATP in order to grow. Now, in some people, you can have what's called the Warburg effect. The Warburg effect is in some people's cancer, it is fed directly through glucose, through pyruvate, all the way down through lactate, and lactate or lactic acid becomes the main feeder for their cancer. That's these people that have defects in the HIF gene. So if you have a lot of defects like this person in your HIF gene, you're going to be more susceptible to this problem that we speak of. But what this paper is talking about, and my entire talk here is talking about, even if a person doesn't have defects in the KRAS and HIF genes, advanced glycinated end products are going to increase signaling pathways for HIF. It's going to upregulate HIF. So binding of RAGE, the receptors for advanced glycinated end products, to KRAS. So even if a person doesn't have defects in KRAS and doesn't have defects in HIF genes, it promotes cancer metastasis. So this is why, regardless of whether you have defects in KRAS and HIF, and when we tested you with kinesiology, or whether your cancer was fed through pyruvate, this pathway, and lactic acid, you still don't want to eat a lot of sugar. Because if you're eating a lot of sugar, you're getting an increased amount of AGEs. So how do you get an increased amount of AGEs? Through eating a lot of fried foods, through eating a lot of grilled foods, through eating a lot of sugar. So if you are a sugar-holic, grillaholic, and you have KRAS defects and HIF gene defects, you're like going to be, for sure, going to be a cancer patient. If you're a sugarholic, grillaholic with, I don't have any idea what my KRAS and HIF genes are, well, you are setting yourself up for problems. So, as you're going to see in a little bit on the intervention of this, when we talk about this in a couple slides, it's regardless of whether you have defects in these gene pathways, to decrease your fried foods and decrease your sugar is really important. That's why just because you can, you can hide from cancer for a period of time because, my friend has horrible cancer, has horrible diet, but he doesn't have cancer, it quite possibly is going to catch up to him at some point in time. So it's best, if you are a person listening to this and do not have cancer, do realize that if you keep assaulting your cell membranes, regardless of your knowledge of these two genes, you're setting yourself up for possible problems. Most of the people listening to this do have cancer. Many already know what their genes are. Many are already sticking to a diet. Well, why am I learning all this stuff? I don't need all this knowledge. The reason why you learn all this stuff is to kind of help advance your cause and give you some strength and willpower to stay on your diet, okay? So, and we're going to be stimulating advanced glycinated end products in our body. We are going to stimulate this pathway. Does that make sense? So the KRAS is the molecular on-off for growth and upregulates GLUT1 for glucose transport. It contributes to the Warburg effect. All that is really wordy knowledge for a doctor, but what it does, it means that it stimulates this pathway in itself. So if we look at a person's genes and we say they have a lot of KRAS defects, I say we need to go on a more keto-like diet. We need to be more strict on our glucose carbohydrate uptake. Also, if we look at a person's genes and they have a lot of HIF defects, we need the exact same thing. We need to be more strict on our carbohydrate intake. We need to be more keto-like in our diet. So those are the two. There's other genes that we look at to give that same definition, but these are two major genes that tell us that we want to be on a more keto-like diet, which means a lower carbohydrate diet. Does that make sense? So the binding of these receptor age advanced glycinated end products to KRAS facilitates, means it upregulates HIF activity and promotes cancer metastasis. It upregulates NF-kappa beta and other pathways that increase metastasis of cells. What do we do about it? Boy, this is all a bunch of heady knowledge. I don't need to know any of this stuff. I'm not a doctor. Well, I'm advancing your knowledge so that you guys can become doctors and help other people. So what do you want to do about this? Well, number one, less sugar consumption. So well, I don't know if I have KRAS gene defects and HIF gene defects. Well, I don't care. You still want to consume less sugar. The less and less sugar you can consume, the less ages you are going to produce in your body. So if we could get our 12-hour fasting glucose down to 75, that would be a wonderful thing. If you have a glucometer at home, you want to start checking these things. So most of you have a glucometer at home because you already are a diabetic patient or pre-diabetic patient. If you're already a pre-diabetic patient, you have a bunch of ages screaming around your blood vessels. Lower consumption of exogenous ages, meaning ages from your foods, less grilled foods, less fried foods. You could Google ages in foods and you'll find a whole bunch of things that you will look at and go, ah! Using lower heating methods. That's why stir fry with coconut oil and things like that is a really good way to cook your foods. Making soups instead of grilling and frying things. If you have HIF and KRAS defects, you have to eat a more keto-like diet. Meaning, so what is keto? Keto is ketogenic. What is ketogenic? You're trying to gain your energy from ketones and not from glucose. So we're trying to not fire glycolysis as much as possible. We're trying to bypass glycolysis. If we're bypassing glycolysis, we got nothing running down this pathway. We're going to starve the cancer if cancer is being fed through lactate. So if we can block this pathway, we can help that. Now understand, if you don't have KRAS gene defects, or you don't have HIF gene defects, and you're already limiting your glucose and limiting your carbohydrates, then your only intervention is, well, I'm going to maybe not grill as much food. I'm going to eat things that are cooked at lower temperatures. Nutrients that I could add that block the RAGE pathway are curcumin. So we use our CurcuClear. Curcumin is a great blocker of this. But remember, curcumin is the activated form of turmeric. Turmeric is a spice. If you're going to take turmeric and add it to your foods, then it needs to be added with a fat and with black pepper. So a fat increases the absorption of the turmeric. A black pepper will increase the half-life in your body. Our CurcuClear is already fat soluble, so you don't have to do any of those. Resveratrol. Resveratrol, where do you get that? In wine. Oh, we need to start drinking more wine. No, you get that in grapes. The negative of resveratrol is it has one of the shortest half-lives of any nutrient. I think it's like a 2.5-minute half-life. I mean, if I took 50 milligrams of resveratrol, and let's pretend that 50 milligrams was absorbed into my bloodstream, well, in 2.5 minutes, 25 milligrams are left. So that's the negative of resveratrol. However, eating some fruits, a lot of your colorful fruits have resveratrol in it. Quercetin is another great anti-inflammatory. I could have put stinging nettles and some other anti-inflammatories on here as well. Vitamin C is good. Other NRF2 stimulating nutrients can be beneficial as well. There's some NRF2 products. We have a NRF2 product that we use a lot. Those are some interventions. Oh, we want to go there. All right, so we are going to end there. And here's some technical data where some of this was gathered. And I am going to open it up. I'm going to unmute everybody. So give you fair warning to stop munching on your potato chips. Fried foods, really, after this talk? I am ashamed of this. But unmuted you are, so if anybody has questions, feel free to speak up.
When you're talking about limiting carbohydrates, do you even mean the carbohydrates like in vegetables or?
So if a person is going, let's say when we do your genetics, you have, let's say your HIF genes and your KRAS genes are like much worse than these. Then we would, yes, we would even count your carbohydrates in your vegetables. So then that's what so a true ketogenic diet is really counting all your carbs in all your food. So a true ketogenic diet, they're not eating carrots, they're not eating root vegetables because they're too high in sugar. So the carbohydrate content is too high. But we're talking about a more keto-like diet. The truth is it's very difficult to get into a full ketogenic into where you're actually burning ketones. So people will say they are in a ketone phase where they're only burning ketones because they're checking a urine stick for ketones, and if they're spilling ketones, they think they're in a ketogenic phase. The truth is you have to check your blood ketones, and it's very difficult to get into a ketogenic phase. You have to really do a complete water fast for about 3 to 5 days to get into burning full ketones. So that is not always possible. We're talking about a ketogenic-like diet where we're decreasing. So if a person's genes were really bad, much worse than these here, we may suggest a keto-like diet. Then we would take away the depending where the person is with their cancer too. So everybody's an individual, but in general, we would take away the root vegetables too. We wouldn't necessarily have you counting all your carbs in your other vegetables, but we would take away your other complex carbs. So we'd put you on a grain-free diet instead of just a gluten-free diet. And so you're really restricting your carbs. Now, that's very difficult to do that if a person is below normal weight. So you can't take a person and put them on a ketogenic diet if they're already below their desired weight or they're losing weight. That's the difficult part of that. So everybody's an individual when we start talking about that. But in general, if that's what your question was, is in general, then I would say, no, you don't have to necessarily count all your carbs in your vegetables. You're really counting more of your carbs in your grains. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one regarding the comment on the HIF gene. I'm looking through my genetic printout and I don't see HIF on here. It's the 2016 version.
Who am I speaking with?
So my name is Connie Ferguson from Pennsylvania.
Connie. So
and I'm a line.
So the report.
I'm a line.
Okay, so the report that you have does not show the HIF gene.
Okay.
You'll have to, let me show you.
Well, you know, I don't see your screen, but later on in the night I look at it.
Okay, so
you know,
I have to pull that up separately. So this is, so in the report that comes with the software, it does, nobody looks at HIF genes unless they're looking at, you know, they're doing more intense like cancer work. So I have to pull it up in the gene. So there's a way in the software that I can look at all your genes. So remember, okay, so you're in version 4, 23andMe, there was about 700,000 SNPs tested. So each one of these is a SNP. In the report that you're given, it's probably only got maybe 300 SNPs on specific things. So the different cancer ones like the KRAS and the HIF, and if you have cancer and you've ever gone over your genetic report with me, then we go in depth to those and we pull those up individually outside of the report. So I think I'm speaking with you tomorrow or something, aren't I, Connie?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I will pull
so
up
it sounds,
your 23andMe again and we'll go over that.
okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Boy.
The only thing that comes to mind specific to this group, I know your introduction was about cancer, but I'm a Limey, and we can cover this tomorrow if you want that to be the venue. But in some of the materials that I've read from your website, a Lyme will, my words probably not technical for you, but will change its frequency over time. How often do we need to have us check back with you to make sure that the Lyme protocols we're using on our rife are still the right concoction?
So a couple things will determine that. The biggest thing is how you're doing. So if I have a Lyme patient and they feel like they're staying stable or they're slowly improving, then we may change the frequencies to up how much kill we got in an overnight program. So Lyme programming for the rife is extremely different than a cancer program. Because in a cancer program, we're attempting to quote unquote kill the cancer with the rife frequencies. And the way a cancer cell is going to die with the rife is going to stimulate apoptosis, and and you will not get any quote unquote Herxheimer reaction from the cancer
Yes.
cells dying. With Lyme
Okay.
disease, you're dealing not with your normal cell, you're dealing with a bacteria. So we're killing
With
that.
gram negative.
Yep, and it's a gram negative, which has a lipopolysaccharide in the cell membrane. And when you kill it, you're going to liberate that lipopolysaccharide, and that's going to stimulate an immune reaction. That's going to cause difficulty in getting it out of the liver cell. You're going to have that Herxheimer reaction. So we don't want to kill too fast. So if
Okay.
tomorrow I speak to you or with any Lyme patient and they go, I'm doing really well, but I feel like I'm kind of plateauing, then I'll say, okay, then I'm going to tweak your program. We're going to add the amount of time that we're doing kill, and we're going to push this a little bit harder. If the
Okay.
patient
That
says,
helps.
so there's three things that could happen. The patient says, I'm doing horrible. Then I might change the dwell where we're going to go slower. Number two, they say, I'm doing well, but I feel like I'm plateaued. Then I'm going to change the dwell and we're going to go faster. Number three, if they
Gotcha.
say, I'm doing fantastic, then I'm going to say, okay, well, let's not change anything.
Okay, so the frequency doesn't move, it's just the duration or dwell.
Well, the frequency may move because lots of times I'll get some, want to add some, as I maybe do some distance testing, I may add some Epstein-Barr, I may add some other co-infections
Okay.
that may help the person too. So with Lyme, there's a lot of tweaking that can be done. So whether a person's
Okay.
speed up or they're not doing well, we could do a lot of tweaking.
Okay. We'll probably talk more tomorrow then. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Hi, Dr. Sanders.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is Mary Rangel, and I'm taking it, it's the 23andMe that you get your genetic review from?
Yes.
Okay, and I have the kit here, so I will get that done and find out with mine what's going on.
Okay, good. Just need to work up some spit and get that thing filled up.
Exactly. So it's good to know, but good. Okay. That's my question. It's all good information.
This is Sharon. I'm a little confused about like when you say the frying and the grilling, but you can stir fry. Like, is it just like
It's the
really fast
temperature.
heating?
Yeah, so it's that temperature that you're cooking. So if
Because
you're
like when I stir fry, I usually put it up high and cook it quick. Like to keep it crispy. So
that's what we don't want.
okay.
So to cook it slower, and it's going to be a little mushier.
Okay, so even you could use the grill on a low heat setting and not have direct contact with.
You could use the grill on a low setting, but think about it. If you got, you got an open flame underneath the product, if you have the grill and you have a pan on the grill and you're stir frying vegetables on the grill, that's fine if you do it on a low setting. But if you're cooking meat on the grill, um, the chance is really to get the meat done, you're either going to have to cook it, at a much lower setting where you're not really frying it so much.
Okay.
And you can still do it, but and I would caution you, if you're doing vegetables on a grill, don't wrap them in aluminum foil. We used to do that. Don't do that. You're just getting aluminum from that too. So use a grill pan of some kind. That would be the better way to do it. So you get a more even heat. You don't have spots where the heat's just coming through the burners. And understand, with all of this, we're not talking about that you could never grill again or anything like that. We're talking about just the frequency that you're doing this. That it doesn't mean you can't, oh, I really like my vegetables crispy. It doesn't mean you can't, stir fry at a higher heat and have vegetables crispy sometimes. We're always talking about balance in all of this, right?
Yeah.
So that's the important piece. Now, if I had genes that will look like I had 2s all the way through here and 1s and a lot of defects in KRAS and HIF, then I would say you have to be more picky with that. But it's about that balance. Just remember that.
Yeah, just and like in the summer we use our grill more like an oven. We don't, we cook it stuff really slow. We have,
Oh yeah, that's good.
it's not direct flame just so we don't heat up the house, so.
Yeah, absolutely. We do that too.
Okay.
Dr. Connors, this is Crystal.
Hello.
Can we call and set up an appointment and just go over the 23andMe again? I don't remember a thing you told me about mine.
What? I thought you had written it all down and you had it all memorized.
I have notes, but I don't know where they are.
Absolutely, you can. Yes,
Okay.
We'll go over that again.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Connors?
Uh-huh.
Hi, it's Lisa Nagel.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Same thing with Crystal. I probably will want to review these gene defects because I don't remember either. But I have a question about, I get confused with like hummus and chickpeas and sweet potatoes are estrogenic, but they are phytoestrogens, correct?
Whoops.
Like
They are, what was that last piece? Somebody dropped a pan.
are they phytoestrogens or they're the good estrogen? Like,
Yeah, it is confusing. Things that have phytoestrogens can they stimulate bad estrogens in our body? And the answer is yes, they can. Do they
okay,
always stimulate bad estrogens in our body? No, they don't. The ones that I would stay away from for sure are soy products. But again, that's a balance. Can you never have soy sauce ever again? No, we're not talking about that. But I certainly wouldn't go purchase soy products. Like I certainly would never drink soy milk, and I wouldn't go buy tofu. I wouldn't buy soy yogurt, and I wouldn't buy any of that soy stuff whatsoever. That's the major thing that I would stay away from. Chickpeas and things, I would not stay away from those. There's too many other benefits to those. If you're Also, if you're concerned about those and you have a estrogen positive cancer, you should be taking DIM and brocolinate and even the fermented soy chew that would help prevent any issues with that anyhow.
And I do. All of the above. Just everything you said, that's exactly what I do. So it's just confusing because you read about, sweet potatoes and chickpeas, and they're good, they're not good. They're good, they're not good, So, okay.
Well, and it is about, remember, in anything you read, even in what we talk about on these things, quite honestly, there's times that I get conflicted in my heart of whether I want to give you guys a talk like I did today, because sometimes I just think that too much information just gets confusing. And I never want that to happen, and I never want to be the perpetrator of that. Because life is about balance. And honestly, I see in some of you sometimes that you get a little bit crazy anal about some things sometimes. Is that true, maybe? And that's not healthy either. So we are called, I believe, to seek wisdom, to not be ignorant. I think it says in the New Testament 19 times, last time I counted, brethren, I wish that you not be ignorant. And I know Paul is not speaking about glycinated end products when he says that, but it does say that we're supposed to seek wisdom. You can see that throughout the scripture and throughout Proverbs. But it's not to the point that it causes us to hibernate on some high mountain someplace. So if what we're doing is causing fear, we've gone overboard. It's good to seek wisdom and to learn what I just said. Oh, that makes sense. Now that gives me a little bit of added juice to stay on my diet a little bit, and to maybe I won't grill every single day. And that's the way I want you to take this information. And it also, you tie it back to the genes. Because if a person, I think I just spoke to somebody today that they had like no HIF defects and their KRAS genes look similar to this, I would say, hey, you don't even need to really worry about that. You are already sticking, and I think I said this to this person, you are already sticking to a diet that is fairly sugar-free right now and really decreasing your carbohydrates, but you have no HIF defects and very few KRAS gene defects. I'd say, well, if you're grilling a little bit right now, that is not a contributor to your cancer and things. So just remember that life is about balance.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Connor,
Uh-huh.
this is Jane Delaney. Talking about the ketogenic way of eating, I think I'm struggling in getting fat in my diet, and I just kind of wanted an idea of how much fat, like tablespoons of coconut oil a day, like you would recommend.
Okay, so in a ketogenic-like diet, there is literally no limit to how much fat you can consume if it's a good fat. So we're not talking about an Atkins diet that you're eating bacon grease. But coconut oil is something in a ketogenic diet that really doesn't have a limit. So you are stir frying with coconut oil. You're taking coconut oil with in your smoothie. I mean, a person could if they're on a ketogenic diet. You don't have to, but I'm saying this is what you could do.
I guess my question is, like, what's the minimum? Because I don't feel like I'm really getting fat in my diet. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to at least get X amount a day somehow, some way. So what would that X amount be? Because I just don't think I'm getting enough.
So in a ketogenic diet, where you could get an increased amount of fat and make you feel more satiated with your meals is to add nut butters and coconut oil to like smoothies.
Like a couple tablespoons
Yep,
a day.
I would plan on what your goal would be 3 to 6 tablespoons of coconut oil a day.
Okay. Okay.
And you
All right.
could have 3 to 6 tablespoons of nut butter a day.
What kind of nut?
Well, everybody migrates to peanut butter, but you can have a little bit of peanut butter, but like cashew butter and almond butter would be good choices.
Okay. All right. That's helpful.
All right. Are we questioned out? Well,
Yes, we are.
we're at about 50 minutes, so I think we better shut down. Hopefully this was helpful. And if this sparks more questions, make sure you email them into me right away, and I will keep flooding you with more information that hopefully does not cause anxiety. So if these talks do cause anxiety, stop listening to them. That would be my recommendation. So we don't need any more anxiety.
Well, what I think is good is you explain the very detailed version for people who can handle that, and then you come to the conclusion for the rest of us. So,
Oh, well, I try to I think the definition of a good teacher is to make very complex things simple. And I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a good teacher yet, but I'm trying my best to try to make these things simple. And I think where my fault comes in is I think, oh, I'm going to this is going too long, so then I hurry up and I don't simplify things well enough. So I'll keep trying to do that. All right. Well, thank you guys, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
and we will
Thank you.
talk again soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.
bye.
Bye.